Hello guys, so I'm going to be doing a video on Crysis Remastered with the Steam Deck. We're starting off with 100p on the lowest settings. Alright, let's jump into it. Alright, now starting it off with 100p on the lowest settings, we're getting around 80 to 90 FPS in the spawn area, which is quite nice. I've spent a bit of time playing this game in different areas with the lowest preset, and I was going around 60 to 90 FPS on average. Those heavier scenes while driving super quickly through the jungle, I was setting as low as 60 FPS. I never dropped down into the 50s from when I played, but that was the lowest FPS was 60, and the maximum was around 90. So it's definitely a good FPS range. The game looks fantastic as well on the lowest settings. You do get some jagged edges on the lowest settings, which you don't get on medium and high settings. Using different anti-aliasing modes like SMAA and TAA, you will get more blurring, which kind of ruins the look of 800p. That's why I avoided it. I'm using SMAA 1x, 2x is too blurry, and TAA is too blurry, so sticking to 1x, and the game still does look very sharp, but again, you will get some jagged edges on the lowest settings. The game does stutter here and there when entering new areas, but just playing normally, going through the level normally, you don't really get any stuttering. Only when entering new areas, or when the game is saving and you're getting a checkpoint. This game's default preset, or the optimal preset that it gives to the Steam Deck, is the high preset with ray tracing, which is very stupid. I'll show you how it looks towards the end of the video pretty much, and you'll see how that runs over there. Alright, as you can see, we're pulling around 9 to 10 watts to the GPU alone, so this game is very GPU intensive. So it's going to be a bit of a challenge, trying to find the balance between CPU and GPU to get the most consistent frames and avoid all the stuttering and FPS drops. So I'm going to be offering a couple of settings, a couple of presets for the Steam Deck: 30 FPS, 40 FPS, 60 FPS, and I guess you can go uncapped as well, but I wouldn't recommend that. I think ideally 40 FPS is really good for this title. You can go 30 FPS as well and match the Switch for portable play. But obviously, it's an FPS, 30 FPS isn't ideal. You're going to lose a bit of responsiveness and fluidity of the game. But 40 FPS is a pretty good balance. You can even go to up to 50 FPS as well. But at that point, you're going to be using up a lot more power. Alright, now playing the game at medium settings, I was getting around 41 to 70 FPS at the medium preset. So quite a decrease already from low to medium, but this game is very intensive like I said before. Now one thing I forgot to mention at the low preset is that this game has control support already built into it, but aim assist isn't enabled by default, so trying to aim is very difficult without it, so make sure you go into the settings and turn on the aim assist. Now at medium settings, you do get a pretty big jump in quality. You can't really see the jagged edges or the lighting issues that we had at low settings. The game looks very clean, very nice. Quality definitely looks improved as well. It's a pretty big jump from low to medium. So it definitely makes sense why we lost 20 FPS on average compared to playing at low settings, and I think it's definitely worth it as well. The quality gain is definitely worth the FPS loss. Now for the most part at medium settings I was getting around 50 FPS, which is quite good still, but in those heavier scenes we do dip down into the 40s, so it's not a consistent 50, and in those lighter scenes we do push up to 60 and 70 FPS, which is fantastic. But I think if you're going to be playing at medium settings with the medium preset strictly, then I would go ahead and use the 40 FPS cap or 30 FPS cap. You can go with the 50 FPS cap as well, but again, you will drop down into the 40s, that's guaranteed, so that might ruin your experience. Let's go and push it up to high settings and continue from there. Alright, now playing to go with the high preset. This is almost what the game gave us. By default, we do get ray tracing enabled as well on the Steam Deck, which is kind of weird. But I was getting around 20 to 30 FPS with the high preset without ray tracing, which is quite unplayable. If you want to play at high settings, I guess you can use FSR by lowering your resolution, but I wouldn't recommend that. And at this point, the game doesn't look too much better compared to medium settings. It's obviously improved, but the FPS loss is definitely not worth the quality gain. Okay, now these are the settings the game chose for us by default for the Steam Deck. The high preset with ray tracing at the high settings as well. And I was getting around 10 to 25 FPS on average. Very unplayable. At 10 FPS it's kind of a slideshow. At 25 FPS it's okay I guess. Driving around felt normal. Still a bit laggy obviously. Shooting is unplayable pretty much, but driving around's fine. Didn't really get any stuttering either, but again, responsiveness was very poor. Alright, now I'm going to go ahead and show you guys the optimized settings that I chose for the game, and we can go ahead and wrap it up from there. Okay, now for the optimized settings, I chose a mix of low to medium settings with some on high. Playing about 800p still, but I will lower the resolution later on to have the 60 FPS presets. But at 800p, we're getting around 40 to 60 FPS on average. Those lower, those heavier scenes, we do drop that into the 40s, just like medium settings. So at this point, I would go ahead and use 40 FPS. Even though you can hold 50 for the most part, those heavier scenes you will drop down into the 40s, and that can ruin your experience. And for the power draw, we're pulling around 26 to 27 watts of power, which is around an hour and a half of battery life, which isn't amazing obviously, but I will go ahead and optimize it further for more battery life towards the end of the video. Okay, now playing the game at 960 by 600, gonna be using FSR obviously. FPS is around 55 to 100 FPS, which is amazing. Our power draw obviously is going to be affected since our FPS is uncapped, so we're going to be getting an hour and a half battery life like before. Now using FSR, the game does look a bit over sharpened in this game, but the overall quality of the game still does look very nice. My FPS here is uncapped, but I would recommend you to use a 60 FPS cap here, or even 40 FPS cap, which I will show in a second. With the 40 FPS cap, we're pulling 16 watts of power, which is 2 hours and 40 minutes of battery life, which is a pretty big upgrade compared to what we had before, with the uncapped frame rate running at 70 to 80 FPS. Now the game isn't going to be as responsive as 70 FPS obviously, but it's still very much playable and you can definitely have a good time playing like this. We're still getting 10 extra frames over the Switch, and we don't really get too many dips as well into the 30s. Okay, for the 30 FPS cap, I chose the 7 watt TDP limit, which is giving us 3.5 hours of battery life, but I had to lower the resolution even more to 800 or 500, so you're losing a bunch more quality compared to what we had before, and you're losing more responsiveness against what we had at 40 FPS, so you're losing a lot for a bit more battery life, so it's a trade-off. You gotta choose if you like more battery life, or you want to have a better looking game that's running better as well. Alright, that's it for the video guys. If you made it this far, appreciate you. As always, if you like what you see, then a like and sub to the channel as well. See you next time.